Hi, folks.
Hola a todos.
Hello there. Please help me pronounce your name. Is it Thalis?
Thalis.
Thalis. Nice to have you here today. We're just going to do, I'm just waiting to make sure that my colleagues are all on the call, and then we will call our meeting to order. Yeah, no.
No, Council President Susan will be able.
Lost you all now for a second. Then that's the important piece. Great. Sorry, Teams is not doing what it typically. Property taxes, the impact on a typical home, and then the other resources that we have on property tax information.
And Ms. Earle, can I just get you to pause one moment? I'm hearing from some folks that they're not seeing the video online.
Oh, okay.
And so I just want to make sure Media Services is got this situation handled and that we're working. We're hearing that there is no presentation following kind of on and off video and sound. So let's just give them a chance to.
Sure.
Okay. Now I'm hearing that it might be working now.
Great. If it's okay with you, I'll proceed and I do my video back up so I can see your video and my presentation at the same time. So I'll kind of watch to make sure if you need to flag me down to stop, I can do that.
Okay. And I'll just look for folks who are letting me know that if it isn't working again, just to give us the high sign. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. So here's what we'll run through this evening. The first section is just a brief budget overview. This is a summary of our 2020 city adopted budget versus the 2021 proposed. The information and the property tax information in particular is really related to the general fund. So the first line here, but the overall city budget includes both, includes additionally special funds and a debt fund. So this gives a total look at how the budget has changed from 2020 to 2021. The budget has shrunk by about 9.4 million, and that includes an $8 million total reduction in the general fund. And so as we've talked about a lot at budget hearings, and I know Mayor Carter has spoken about, the 2021 budget proposal before the City Council includes no property tax levy increase, no city layoffs, so personnel savings are achieved through hiring freezes and other keeping vacant positions open, and no use of our city emergency reserves. I'll offer to you all and to folks watching a quick revenue summary. So we've, sorry, I'll go back one slide. An $8.6 million net general fund revenue reduction. That includes a fair amount of reductions across several of our revenues. This list is not all inclusive, and I won't read it to you all, but this is a snapshot of some of the more major revenues that we have. A lot of the revenue changes and reductions that we're seeing in 2021 are related to the pandemic, both to behavior changes due to social distancing and other requirements, particularly parking meters is a good example of that change. And then also some of the economic fallout from the pandemic. So, for example, property taxes and expecting an increase in delinquency rates for property taxes. I'll offer a quick summary of the reductions and efficiencies in the budget as well as part of the budget solution. We reduced $1.2 million of public safety spending, and so that's across the police and fire departments. A little out of order, sorry, $5.7 million of frontline service department reductions. And so these are reductions in services across departments like parks, libraries, public works, DSI. So those really frontline services. There are changes and reductions in all of those departments. And then also another $2.3 million of internal service department reductions, largely vacancy savings in departments like human resources, technology, and finance. The mayor did include a few investments in 2021. Technology and communications has an increase mostly related to customer-facing technology solutions and technology infrastructure. Obviously, we're all meeting over Teams. The world we're in really requires a lot of increased use of technology, so funding priorities there. An increase in the library budget for cultural liaisons, a library program coordinator, and mobile hotspots, and then an increase in the Parks Department for the Community First Public Safety Awakenings program. Moving on to property taxes, the property tax update for 2021, as I mentioned earlier, there's no increase in the property tax levy, but while the total amount collected from property taxes isn't changing, it's possible that folks' tax bills will, and that's usually, not usually, that is based on what's happening to other properties in your jurisdiction, so within the city, the county, or the school district that you're in, and potentially other changes that are made at other levels of government as well, all impact the final tax bill that someone will see in the changes from year to year. This is a summary of the mayor's proposed tax levy. You can see there's some movement between the different buckets of the levy, but as I mentioned, overall, the property tax levy doesn't change from 2020 to 2021. And then we've got a little bit of a snapshot of what this means for a typical home. And so the first lines are what the 0% levy change does for a typical median valued home. In 2020, that home was valued at just under $200,000. In 2021, it's valued as just under $216,000. But again, those other factors of what's happening with this median property and what's happening with other properties in the city all go into impacting a change in the levy and change in the property tax bill, even though there's no change in the city levy. So the net change will be a $15 reduction in this property's taxes on the city side for 2021. This slide also summarizes other fees and changes in the 2021 budget. So we like to not only look at the property taxes, but also sewer fees, recycling fees, things like that, the water bill, because we know property taxes aren't the only bill that folks pay to the city. And so this view gives a full snapshot of the impact from 2020 to 2021. And this typical home can expect a $9 total change across all of the services listed here. This gives a snapshot of proposed tax rates as applied to a typical valued home. And so really, we like to include this slide so folks understand that St. Paul, you can see over on the right-hand side in green, is a part of what a typical or what any property tax payer will see on their bill, but it's one small piece of it. We also have St. Paul Public Schools and Ramsey County influence what have their own separate levies, and so will add to the total property tax bill for taxpayers in St. Paul. Finally, I've got a couple slides two slides on property and budget resources. So we've just making sure folks are aware they can find information on the city's budget online. We have an open budget portal. So this is where folks can really dive into the details if they'd like, slice and dice our budget data. It's all uploaded there and able for folks to really dig into across a couple different ways to organize the data and really dig down if there's something in particular that folks are interested in finding out about the city budget. We've got a property tax estimator tool online. So I mentioned each property is going to have a different impact of the city proposed levy, or in this case, the 0% levy based on their unique property. And so you're able to go in and put in, put in your specific property's information and get an estimate of what your rate would be. I think most folks probably have their actual rates with their T&T notices now, but this estimator is always out there for folks to use too. That was a lot. So with that, that's the last slide that I have, but happy to answer questions or if there's information anyone would like me to clarify or go back to.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Earle. And I would just say that this is a very interesting year to use that tool, especially because it is a 0% levy increase, and just really see, I know that my property taxes went down somewhat and my property values went up somewhat. And I know that people's experiences across the city are different, but when it's a 0% and you still see all these changes, you can really helps illustrate the point that our levy is only a part of the action in terms of determining what people's property tax levels are. Mm-hmm. Are there other questions for? I'm not telling you that, Ms. Earle. I'm telling our many viewers. Are there any feedback or thoughts on this item? And of course, we often point out that by this time we've seen the presentation as council members many times. And so it's not news to us. That's probably why there's not a lot of questions, but also it's good to just kind of recap where our journey to get here tonight. So I appreciate that. Okay. That looks like it's a wrap, Ms. Earle. So thank you for your presentation, and we will see you last week for one more show.
Great. Right? Thank you, Council President Brenmone and council members. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you later. All right. Ms. Houston, did you have anything to add before we move into the truth in taxation?
Council President, council members, I did not have anything to add before we hear from the constituents.
Okay. All right, great. So we are working tonight with Ms. Mormond, and she'll be working on connecting our constituents who wish to speak tonight into the call. Our first two callers are working with an interpreter who is already on the line, and we have not done this before, so we are going to work. We're going to give ourselves a little break here as we navigate this public hearing using an interpreter and unable to actually see our guests who are speaking. So what will happen is Ms. Mormond is going to connect our constituents, our speakers by phone. They will call in and then we will put the timer on for 2 minutes for them to share their perspective. With the translators, of course, we will extend the period of time, recognizing that it's adds a layer of complexity and we need to build out that time for them. So with that, Ms. Mormond, our interpreter is ready and you can bring on our first caller. Maybe you can start by introducing who you're trying to reach to, and then when they come on the line, we'll just welcome them.
I'm calling Ide Omana, and here we go.
There will be a little pause while we're connecting.
Hola.
Hello.
Hola.
Hola,
Hola.
Is this Ide? Ide? Welcome.
Sí, soy yo.
Bienvenida. Yes, it's me.
Okay. She can begin. Ide, you can begin whenever you'd like, and we'd love to hear your perspective.
Ide, puedes comenzar cuando quieras y nos encantará escuchar tu perspectiva.
Okay. Hola a todos, mi nombre es Ide Omana. Soy miembro de CETUL. Yo trabajo en un restaurante en San Pablo desde hace un año. Estoy aquí para compartirles mi experiencia y la de muchos trabajadores. Por ejemplo.
Un momento, Aide, por favor. Hi, my name is Aide Omana. I am a member of FECTUL. I work at a restaurant in St. Paul, and I've worked there for a year. And I'm here to share my experience as well as the experience of many other workers.
Los padrones con frecuencia violan las leyes y nuestros derechos y no tienen consecuencias.
The patrons often violate the laws and our rights and suffer no consequences.
Nadie les llama la atención, nadie les exige.
Nobody calls to their attention or calls them to attention or demands anything from them.
Un ejemplo, varios compañeros de trabajo han estado infectados con COVID.
An example is several of my my workmates have been infected with COVID.
Y el patrón se ha negado a pagarles las 80 horas de la ley de familias primero.
And our boss has refused to pay the 80 hours of Family First.
Y pues eso es para mí muy injusto y algunos hasta han perdido sus trabajos solo por pelear sus derechos.
And that to me is very unjust, and even several people have lost their jobs just for demanding their rights.
Y quiero pedirles que por favor este año prioricen dinero en el presupuesto para contratos comunitarios, contratar más investigadores.
And I want to ask you, please, for this next year's budget, to prioritize money for community contracts and to prioritize money for investigators or more investigators.
Este año ha sido muy difícil para nosotros los trabajadores por COVID.
This year has been very difficult for us workers because of COVID.
Necesitamos información, y apoyo y que hagan cumplir las leyes.
We need information and support, and that you make sure that the law is upheld.
Necesitamos también justicia.
We also need justice.
Organizaciones como CEPTUL nos apoyan en educarnos y organizarnos en nuestra comunidad.
Organizations like SEPTUL support us in educating us and organizing us within our community.
30 seconds left.
Le quedan
Y
30.
ustedes deben seguir sus compromisos con la comunidad para asegurar que los recursos sean necesarios para que nuestros derechos laborales se aseguren. Muchas
And
gracias.
you must uphold your commitment to the community so that resources are used to uphold our rights within our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
That worked great, and thank you for breaking in at the appropriate amount of time. I saw you scribbling away. It's like, oof. So I think that worked well. Thank you. All right, Ms. Mormon. Ms. Mormon, are you calling? Can you let us know who you're
Forgiving
calling?
my pronunciation, Vianney de Liberado Para is the next person coming on.
Vianney.
Vianney, yes.
Bueno,
Hello.
sí,
Yes.
Hola, Vianney.
Hi, Vianney.
hola,
Hi.
hola, buenas tardes.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Welcome. You can start your testimony.
Bienvenida. Puede comenzar con su testimonio.
Gracias. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Vianney.
Good afternoon. My
Estoy
name
aquí para, perdón. Estoy aquí para dar mi testimonio uno sería de por qué debemos tener más fondos para los derechos laborales.
I'm here to give my testimony. Number one, we need to have more funds for the rights, the workers' rights.
Necesitamos más fondos para el sector laboral.
We need more funds for.
Necesitamos presupuestos para la ciudad de San Pablo.
We need more funds for the working sector, and we need more of a budget for the city of St. Paul.
Para poder tener más seguridad en la comunidad, ya que por ahora, la verdad, la seguridad en la comunidad se ha desaparecido. No hay uno como habitante de la comunidad no se siente ya seguro.
We need more funds to assure the safety within our community. The safety in our community has disappeared. As a member of a community, one does not feel safe.
Las razas por ahora se encuentran divididas.
Because the communities stand divided.
Necesitamos justicia, necesitamos sentirnos seguros en la misma comunidad.
We need justice and we need to feel safe within our own community.
También necesitamos fondos para tener más investigadores.
We need funds to have more investigators.
Y pues seguir apoyando soy una miembro de CETUL y hemos tenido, cuando se aumentó o estuvo lo del aumento del salario.
Only the members of los miembros de, perdón, ¿me puede repetir?
CETUL.
Only the members of SEPTUL received support when there was an increase in salary.
30 seconds remaining.
Le quedan 30 segundos.
Y pues creo que por ahora pues el impacto del COVID nos impactó un poco más por la reducción de empleos.
I think the impact of COVID impacted us more because of the reduction in jobs.
Y pues el salario que los empleados tienen por ahora, la verdad, algunos no, todavía no son buenos para uno mismo.
And honestly, a lot of the salary that the jobs that exist have is not good enough for a person.
Ya que como madre tuve que salirme del trabajo para poder estar en casa porque mis hijos toman las clases en línea.
As a mother, I had to leave my job because now my kids are at home taking online classes.
Creo que sería todo por ahora.
I think
Muchas
that's all for
gracias
now.
y mucho gusto.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Gracias. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
And thank you for working with us tonight. We appreciate your help, and I think the rest of our speakers are good. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having
Nice
me.
job. Nice job.
The next person I'm calling is Sharon Anderson.
Sorry, you cannot leave a message for 651776.
Per the council's rules for these hearings, I will try one more time later in the meeting to reach Ms. Anderson. I will queue up the next person. The next person I'm calling is Joelle Stangler.
Hello?
Sorry, you cannot leave a message for
Oh.
651.
Hello?
Hello, is this Joanne?
Joelle?
Joelle. Hi, Joelle. Sorry, there's like a voicemail message also playing in the background, so it was hard to hear you speaking.
Sorry, I was listening to the hearing, so it's probably the caller before me. Yeah.
Oh, and it's a little bit delayed. Okay, that's right. Well, sorry about that. Welcome. It's wonderful to have you here tonight. You can go ahead with your testimony. We'll start the timer when you start talking.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. My name is Joelle Stangler. I'm a first-time homeowner living in a 3-person household in Frogtown. I'm also a union worker in the Midway neighborhood, and I'm one of the thousands of St. Paul residents who want to see our council divest from police and invest in our community. I just want to share my experience with police in my neighborhood. On any given day, I see police drive past my home 3 to 5 times. Meanwhile, I see unhoused community members in need of shelter. My neighbors are crowdfunding to make their rent, and our neighborhood organizers are working tirelessly to ensure tenants know their rights and are safe from eviction. This is one example of the many issues that the police themselves admit that they aren't equipped to address. Folks who are facing mental health crises, folks who are in poverty, being a few other issues as well. And as COVID exacerbates the existing inequities in our city, I believe we need to invest in solutions that address these challenges. They address poverty, housing instability, educational inequity, and more. And in most instances, I see the police exacerbating these issues and challenges, and they're not actually solving them. And so I urge you all to reallocate more resources from policing to proven solutions like public housing, job programs, and more. And finally, I just want to be clear that the police do not make me feel safe. And when I look at the city budget, I don't think it reflects one of public safety.
30 seconds remaining.
Okay. I feel safe when I see the work of Feeding Frogtown initiative that ensures families have access to nutritious food. I feel safe when my neighborhood bikeway is safe for bikers and our sidewalks are clear for our elders. And I feel safe when I see youth workers hosting events in the parking lot on Charles and Mackeyman. I believe these organizations deserve the 32% of the budget allocated to police. Please divest from the police and invest in our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciated hearing from you.
The next person I'm calling is Tom Baskin.
This is Tom.
Hey, Tom, this is the council. We're looking forward to hearing your testimony, and we'll begin the timer when you start talking. Welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you, council. The two most expensive things in this city are cars and cops, and 2020 has laid bare the failures of SPPD. There needs to be consequences and accountability. Their budget needs to be decimated. SPPD is an institution that suffers no lasting consequences for their repeated and excessive failures. They dumped so much tear gas onto protesters this summer that I had friends choking on it inside their apartments. There was the parking lot beatdown where officers abetted a savage assault. 2017, their canine unit attacked neighbors trying to go to work or take out the garbage. They still have their feral dogs, and one was used in an excessive force incident this last weekend. 12 cops and 4 bullets for a naked guy with an attack dog pinning him to the ground. Was that incompetence or cowardice? How many bad apples are they going to fire before we realize that the bunch is spoiled? Crime doesn't rise and fall with their budget. It's tied to our trust in them, which they've squandered on their wannabe warrior culture. If Public Works failed as dramatically as SPPD did, we'd have put Kathy Lantry in prison. Let's not forget their racist whoopsie at the end of the mayor's last election. I remember, and I expect my counselors to do the same. They have failed and are unworthy of the largest portion of our budget. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you so much.
The next person I'm calling into the meeting is Stacia Wick.
This is Stacia.
Hey, Stacia. This is the St. Paul City Council, and you're part of our Truth and Taxation hearing. We're looking forward to hearing your comments and remarks tonight, and we will start the timer when you start up. Welcome, and thanks for being here. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Stacia Wick. My husband and I have lived in St. Paul for 27 years. We're raising 2 children in Ward 1, and we're proud that they'll both graduate from St. Paul Public High Schools, one in the spring and one next year. We're also proud to be from St. Paul. Because I identify as white, I've been doing more and more work on my own and with friends and family and neighbors to understand what it means to be a white person in America, in Minnesota, and yes, in St. Paul, as 2020, the year that George Floyd was killed, draws to a close. One thing I've come to believe it means is that because I benefit from a system of white supremacy, I have a duty to do everything I can to talk about that system, to acknowledge its existence, and to use my voice to dismantle an often violent and unfair system that harms people. So today I call on you, the City Council, to seize the potential of this moment and do everything you can do to center the priorities and experiences of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color who are our neighbors. I call on you to shift 2021 budget dollars away from policing and toward public safety in new and innovative ways that actively reduce harm and improve equity.
30 seconds remaining.
Specifically, I call on you to expand the non-police mental health response units that already exist in our city. I urge you to increase the 2021 budget for and invest my tax dollars in parks and recreation programs, in our amazing libraries, fair housing, public health, community development, and financial empowerment. The time for this change is right now. Thank you for listening to my comments.
Thank you so much. We appreciate what you have to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
The next person I'm calling into the meeting is Marianne Reese, or Rice, I'm not sure.
Hello, this is Marianne.
Hi, Marianne. This is the St. Paul City Council, and you're at our Truth and Taxation hearing online. We look forward to hearing your comments, and we'll just start our 2-minute timer whenever you're ready. Welcome.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. So, hello, my name is Marianne Reese. I live in Ward 7 in the Dayton's Bluff neighborhood, and I'm with the group Isaiah. Now is the time to further our work of dismantling racism by restructuring the city's budget. I ask that you allocate $50,000 to the Immigrant Legal Defense Fund, another $75,000 to the Tenant Protection Ordinance in order to thoroughly support its implementation, and $300,000 to support workers' rights. But most passionately, I ask you to fund community first public safety initiatives. I wish to live in a city where all residents are valued for their innate human dignity, and the place to start is with the budget in dollars and cents. Allocating 20% of the budget to law enforcement to me translates as placing a lesser value on my neighbors who are Black, Indigenous people of color. And in fact, it keeps the policies and structures of racism in place. And I think of my 15-year-old neighbor, Javon, who at age 13 said, "I know I'm going to die young. What does heaven look like?" We can fund an immediate end to our government systems that have created the situation in which my neighbor Javon and his family live.
30 seconds remaining.
Those systems lead to the degradation and premature death of Black lives in St. Paul. And so I want to stop saying my little prayer every time I hear sirens in my neighborhood, which is all the time. I say to the responders, may you respond with dignity and respect, and may those receiving the call have what they need. Please, please change the way we have our budget set up for 2021. Thank you so much for welcoming me, and I wish you all well. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
This is my second call to Sharon Anderson to bring her into the meeting.
Sorry, you cannot leave a message for 651-7765.
Those were 2 attempts to reach Ms. Anderson unsuccessfully. That concludes the list of speakers.
All right, thank you, Ms. Foreman. So that brings us to the end of our list. And as we mentioned earlier, with this process, we really encourage people to participate by sharing their thoughts by voicemail and by email. And we had an incredible amount of response to that. There's over 130 emails that came in that are worth taking the time to read, and they are public information if others would like to see what people shared online as well. So that concludes our required truth and taxation hearing. And we will continue to, we'll take these comments and the comments that we receive throughout the year into consideration as we move forward to the final vote on our 2021 budget. So there is nothing else to come before us this evening, so we will be adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Good night.